What if the man she feared the most was the only one who could save her? The Montana wind cut like a knife that February morning in 1875 as May Campbell stood at the tall wooden gate of Stone River Ranch. Snow blew sideways across the open plains, stinging her cheeks and turning her breath into white clouds that vanished before her eyes. She had walked 8 miles through that storm, her thin boots soaked through, her toes numb, and her threadbare coat no match for the biting cold. But hunger was worse than winter, and May had learned long ago that cold didn't kill as fast as helplessness. The ranch lay stretched before her like a kingdom carved from frozen earth. Smoke curled from the chimneys of the main house. A huge barn stood proudly despite the storm, and men moved around it with quiet purpose, their coats dusted with frost. The bunkhouses lined the right side of the yard, warm yellow lamplight spilling from their windows. Everything looked alive, working, needed. Everything she wasn't. At least, not yet. A rough voice cut through the wind behind her. "You lost, woman." Quote. May turned to see a bearded cowhand, his face nearly hidden by frost and whiskers. His eyes were sharp, suspicious. She'd grown used to that look. Men judging her, doubting her, deciding things about her before she opened her mouth. "I'm here for the cook job," she said, forcing her voice steady. "Old cook passed. I heard you needed someone." The cowhand spat tobacco into the snow. "Mr. Stone don't hire women, especially not for men's work. Best head back the way you came before the storm buries you." "I won't make that walk again without at least trying," she said. "I walked 8 miles for this chance. Least you can do is let me talk to him." "Stubborn, ain't you?" he muttered. Another voice stepped in, younger, calmer, amused. "Red, go check the horses. I'll handle this." May turned and saw him. Caleb. He looked younger than the other men, maybe 30, with dark hair falling over winter-blue eyes. He wasn't bundled up like the rest. Just a leather vest over a shirt that shouldn't have kept him warm, yet he looked untouched by the cold. Like the wind simply slid off him, like the storm didn't dare touch him. "You walked 8 miles?" he asked. No judgment, just the question. She lifted her chin. "I did." "Why?" "Because hungry feels worse than cold." She wanted to lie. She wanted to sound proper and respectable, but she was too tired to pretend. "Because I needed work, and I'm good at what I do," she said honestly. Something flickered in his eyes. Respect maybe, or surprise. He studied her like he was trying to read her whole life from her face, her worn coat, her shaking hands, her stubborn jaw. "You ever cook for 25 hungry cowboys?" he asked. "I've cooked for more with less," she answered. "Give me a kitchen, and I'll prove it." Caleb looked back toward the main house. "Mr. Stone's gone on business, won't return for 3 days. We've been living on burnt beans since the cook died." "Then you need me more than you think." He hesitated, and then nodded. "Kitchen's in the back of the main house. Pantry's full but messy. Cookie was half blind as last year. Bunkhouse kitchen's where the meals go. Men eat at 6, noon, and 6. Miss one meal, they'll run you out faster than a wildfire." "I won't miss." He paused again, as though deciding whether to trust her. "What do I call you?" "May," she said, no last name. Last names caused questions she wasn't ready to answer. He nodded. "All right, May, follow me." The kitchen was chaos. Pots crusted with old food, grease thick on the stove, flour spilled across the floor like snow. She stared at it, not in fear, but in determination. She'd cleaned worse. She'd survived worse. Caleb hovered near the door. "You sure you can handle this?" Quote. "Mr. Caleb," she said, rolling up her sleeves, "I've been handling worse things than dirty kitchens since I was 15. This is nothing." He almost smiled. Almost. By the time the dinner bell rang at 6, the kitchen shone. Steam rose from a thick pot of ham and bean soup. Biscuits light as clouds sat in baskets. Peach preserves waited on the table. And 3 apple pies cooled near the window. The dining room went silent when she entered. 25 men staring at her. some curious, some doubtful, some rude enough to sneer openly. "Soup's ready," she said simply. "Eat it hot or eat it cold, I don't care either way." The first spoonful changed everything. Men sighed, eyes widened, biscuits disappeared. A cowhand actually applauded until the others glared him quiet, and when she brought out the pies, the room erupted in cheers. Caleb brought his empty plate back himself. That was the best meal this ranch has seen in months. "It was simple," she said, wiping her hands. "Tomorrow will be better." He leaned on the doorframe. "Where will you sleep?" "I'll make do in the kitchen," she said, "warm enough." "There's a small room off the pantry," he said. "Cookie used it, has a cot. It's not much, but it's private." Private. A word that meant safety, that meant peace. "That will do," she said softly. Caleb hesitated before leaving. "Some men will test you, make comments, try things. Best to ignore them." May met his eyes steadily. "Mr. Caleb, I've been tested by worse men than all the cowboys here. As long as they respect my kitchen, we'll be fine." Something in Caleb's expression shifted. Something he didn't say. Something she couldn't name. He nodded and left. That night, May lay in the tiny room off the pantry, listening to the wind howl outside. But for the first time in months, she was warm. She had a roof. She had work. She had purpose. And somewhere out in the bunkhouse, Caleb Stone, who wasn't quite what he seemed, lay awake thinking about her. May didn't know yet that he'd seen her once before, or that he already felt responsible for her, or that he had secrets of his own. She only knew one thing. Tomorrow, everything might change. What if one man's lie could break the only trust she'd begun to believe in? The next morning at Stone River Ranch began before sunrise. Frost clung to the windows. The air carried the smell of wood smoke and horses, and May was already rolling biscuits by lamplight. Her hands moved fast, steady, confident. Cooking had always been her way of finding calm, of keeping fear quiet. But peace never lasted long in places full of lonely men. By noon of her second week, May felt the shift. Conversations stopped when she walked into a room. Eyes flicked toward her, then away. She heard murmurs from bunkhouse corners but couldn't make out the words. Trouble had a sound, and she knew it well. It happened during supper. Young Tommy Morrison, barely 17, loud and eager, spoke just loud enough for her to hear from the kitchen doorway. "My ma always said a woman traveling alone ain't no better than she ought to be." May's hands paused on the wash basin. She kept her face calm, but inside, something tightened. She'd heard words like that all her life. Words meant to keep women small, ashamed, afraid. Red Callahan's rough voice added, "Makes a man wonder what kind of woman she is, showing up from nowhere, walking in a storm. Ain't natural." Tommy tried to laugh it off. "I'm just saying decent women don't wander, they—" The crash of a plate hitting the floor cut him off. The room fell silent. May stepped out of the kitchen. The pieces of the plate lay at her feet, but her voice was steady. "Decent women," she said, looking straight at Tommy, "do whatever they need to survive. They scrub floors until their hands bleed. They bury husbands and children. They do hard things because life gives them no choice." The men shifted in their seats. Tommy swallowed. "I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did." She moved closer, not raising her voice. "She didn't need to. You meant to make me feel small. But I won't be shamed by boys who don't know the world outside these ranch walls." No one breathed. Caleb stood up slowly from his seat at the far table. His voice cut clean through the tension. "She's right, and any man here who eats her food has no business questioning her decency." Red smirked. "You sweet on her, Caleb? That why you're defending her?" Before May could blink, Caleb knocked Red flat with one punch. Chairs scraped. Men jumped back. "This ends now," Caleb said calmly, shaking out his fist. "Red, you will not speak another word about Miss May. Not one." Red rose, holding his bloody nose. "When Mr. Stone hears, he'll hear you insulted a woman on his land," Caleb cut in. "Now pack your bags. You're done here." Red looked around for support but found none. Even Tommy stared at his boots, ashamed. With a final curse, Red stomped out the door. The room stayed silent until the wind rattled the windows. Caleb's gaze found May. Not pity, not anger, just concern. She slipped back into the kitchen, her hands shaking now that the danger had passed. She had survived far worse, but old wounds never stayed buried for long. A moment later, Caleb stepped inside, his hand wrapped in a rag of ice. "I'm sorry you had to hear that," he said. "There's nothing new in what he said," May replied, focusing hard on her dishes. "Men have been telling me what I am my whole life. But they were wrong." His voice was low, every one of them. She washed another plate. "Doesn't matter if they're wrong. People believe what they want." "Not me," Caleb said. When she didn't answer, he stepped closer. "Do you want to know something, May? I saw you before." Her heart stopped. "At the Rose Bell," he continued quietly, "in Billings, last December." May froze, the plate slipping underwater. "You were working there," he said, "serving drinks, trying to dodge the hands of men who didn't deserve to look at you, and I said nothing. I didn't help. I told myself it wasn't my place." May's breath caught. "Why are you telling me this?" Quote, "Because you deserve the truth. Because you deserve a man who doesn't hide from what he's seen." She stared at him, her heart pounding. So all this was guilt? "At first," he admitted. "But not now. Now it's something else." His eyes held hers. "Now it's because you're the strongest woman I've ever known, and I can't stand the thought of you hurting." Her throat tightened. She wanted to turn away, but she couldn't. Not from him. Not now. Later that night, she lay in her small room, staring at the ceiling. The wind outside had softened, but her thoughts were loud. Caleb had known her past. Red had guessed at it. The men had wondered about it. She had survived worse judgment, worse shame, worse pain. But something about Caleb seeing her then, seeing her at her lowest and still wanting to protect her now, it changed something inside her. She wasn't sure if it was hope or danger, or both. The next morning proved that trouble doesn't sleep. May stepped out to gather eggs when she heard Red Callahan's voice carrying from across the yard. He was back, talking low, talking angry, talking about her. And this time he wasn't just spreading rumors, he was threatening her place here, threatening her future. The storm she thought she'd left behind was coming straight for her again. And this time, she couldn't run. Not now. Not with everything at stake. Not with Caleb watching her like she wasn't just another drifter, but someone worth fighting for. What if everything she built could burn down in a single night, unless the man she feared trusting was the one meant to save her forever? The danger May sensed had been growing for days. Red Callahan might have been thrown off the ranch, but hate didn't leave easy. And men like Red didn't forget humiliation. The morning Caleb found footprints circling the henhouse and the barn, he knew Red hadn't gone far. Trouble was still lingering, waiting. But none of that compared to what happened the night the fire came. May woke coughing, the smell of smoke thick in her nose. At first, she thought it was memory, old nightmares from the Rose Bell, where men smoked cheap cigars in small, airless rooms. But then she saw it, the orange light flickering under her pantry room door. She opened it, and heat slammed into her like a fist. The whole kitchen was burning. Flames climbed the walls, greedily eating through shelves she had scrubbed clean just weeks ago. The roof beams cracked like gunshots. Smoke poured in, choking her. She stumbled backward, her eyes burning. "Fire!" she screamed. "Fire in the kitchen!" But even as she yelled, her eyes shot to the one thing that mattered, her mother's cookbook, the only piece of family she had left, the only thing that had walked every journey with her. She grabbed a shawl, wrapped it around her head, and ran into the burning pantry. Heat scorched her face. Sparks rained down her back. Her lungs screamed for air. There, the leather binding. She snatched the book, then reached blindly for the small tin hidden behind the flour sacks. Her wages, every cent she had saved. Her fingers closed on the tin just as a burning beam crashed behind her. She screamed, dropping to her knees. "May!" A voice roared through the smoke. May! Caleb. Suddenly he was there, arms around her, dragging her backward as the ceiling caved in. She fought him. No, my money. Caleb, let me go. Forget the money, he shouted, coughing hard. You're all that matters. Still, she fought, desperation turning to panic. Without that money, she was nothing again. No options, no escape, no safety. Caleb, please. He lifted her easily, holding her against his chest as if she weighed nothing. I said I've got you. Then they burst out into the freezing night. Cold air hit her lungs like knives, but it saved her. She collapsed in the snow, gasping, clutching the cookbook as if it were life itself. Caleb was beside her, pulling her close, checking her burned hands, her face, her hair. May, look at me. Are you hurt? She couldn't answer through the coughing. Men poured out of the bunkhouse, forming a bucket line. But it was too late. The kitchen, the place she'd built her new life, was gone. Flames ate it greedily as if it had never been. Caleb held her. It's just a building, he murmured. Just wood and nails. You're alive. That's what matters. But she shook her head. You don't understand, she whispered. Without my wages, I'm trapped here. I have nothing again. His jaw tightened. His eyes softened in a way she'd never seen before. You will never be trapped, he said. Not while I'm here. Those words, warm, terrifying, sank deep. Before she could answer, a shout rose from the road. Samuel Stone had returned. The ranch owner took one look at the burning kitchen, then at May in Caleb's arms. Something flickered in his eyes. Calculation, surprise, then something like understanding. Caleb, he ordered, take her to the main house. Mrs. Polson will tend her burns. We'll handle the rest. May shook her head. I can help. You can rest, Samuel said firmly. That's an order. Caleb lifted her again, ignoring her tired protests. She leaned into him, exhausted, letting his warmth shield her from the cold night. Inside the main house, Mrs. Polson fussed over her, treating her hands and hair where sparks had burned them. But even as the woman scolded her, May's thoughts were tangled. Fear, shame, loss, and something else she didn't dare name. Then Caleb stepped into the doorway. How is she? He asked. She'll mend, Mrs. Polson said. What she was doing inside a burning kitchen, I will never understand. Caleb approached the bed slowly, as if afraid she'd run. May, he said softly, I need you to hear something. I know you saw my past, she whispered. At the Rosebell. That's not what I need to say. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small leather pouch, and set it beside her. Her heart stopped. My wages? She breathed. All of them, plus extra. Sam and I agreed your work earned far more than what you hid away. Quote, but Caleb, it's yours. You earned it, and you can leave anytime you want. Her throat tightened. Why would you give this to me? He looked at her with an honesty that stripped her bare. Because I don't want you to stay because you're trapped, he said. I want you to stay because you choose to. Before she could speak, he continued, and there's something else you deserve to know. My name isn't just Caleb. He took a breath. It's Caleb Stone. Samuel Stone is my father. Her heart dropped. You're the owner's son. I work as a hand because I want to. Because I needed to be someone other than the Stone heir. I wasn't lying. I was hiding. That's different. But you deserve the truth. Her chest tightened painfully. I trusted you. And you still can, he said gently. If you'll let me. Before she could answer, Mrs. Polson returned with another surprise, a letter delivered during the fire. May opened it with trembling hands and froze. Inside was a photograph. A girl about 8 years old. Her eyes were May's. The letter was simple. Dear May, I have been searching for you for years. Mother told me everything before she passed. You are my sister. Please write back. Anna Campbell. May covered her mouth, tears spilling down her cheeks. A sister, she whispered. I have a sister. Caleb knelt beside her. You have family, May. Real family. The world spun. The past loosened its grip. The future opened like a door. And Caleb was there, steady as a mountain. Don't run, he whispered. Not this time. Stay. With me. With us." Morning came with answers. Samuel Stone offered her a real position: head cook, household manager, rebuilt quarters, a future. Anna wrote back, eager to visit. The men asked for her return, even awkward Tommy apologizing twice. And Caleb. Caleb stood before her honestly. No hiding, no shame, no secrets left. "Choose your life, May," he said softly. "And if you choose me too, I'll spend the rest of my days proving you were right." May looked at the ranch, the rising kitchen frame, the letter from her sister, and at Caleb. At his winter blue eyes, at the man who carried her from the flames. At the man who'd chosen her long before she ever believed she was worth choosing. Her answer was simple: "I'm staying." And when Caleb kissed her, slow, grateful, full of trembling relief, she melted into him, feeling for the first time not like a drifter or a survivor, but like a woman finally coming home. She would build a life here, with her own hands, with her own strength, with Caleb's heart beside hers. A place to live, a place to belong, a place to love. Forever.